Hi, everyone, and welcome. This is Christine, and I'm excited to share a quick overview of our recent Zoom presentation where we talked all about our upcoming 2026 photography workshops. It was such a fun conversation with the whole team. Sarah, our multi-talented cat herder and reservation specialist, Captain Jeffrey, and our two incredible photography instructors, John D'Onofrio and Alan Sanders. In the Zoom session, we walked through all three workshops we're offering this season. First, the Alaska Fjords and Coastal Brown Bears, our immersive 8-day adventure focused on intimate wildlife encounters and dramatic fjord landscapes. Next, we talked about Glacier Bay National Park, another 8-day workshop where we explore tidewater glaciers, wildlife-rich shorelines, and those iconic wide-angle glacier vistas. And finally, the San Juan Islands Photography Workshop, a 5-day autumn exploration that blends fall colors and the unique landscapes of the Salish Sea. We also spent time talking about John and Al's unique styles, their artistic inspirations, and their approach to teaching. Both bring different strengths to our workshops, which really have benefited each and every person who has come aboard. And, of course, we shared what makes our workshops truly stand apart. The small group experience aboard the David B, our flexible itineraries that let us chase the best light and wildlife, and the supportive, hands-on instruction our guests get throughout each day. This preview video gives you a sense of the creativity, adventure, and close community that makes these workshops so special. So let's dive in.
Well, welcome everyone. My name is Sarah, and I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening for our photography workshops on the motor vessel David B. This is our preview for the 2026 season. We have our recording on so that everyone can listen afterwards. At this time, everyone is muted and videos are turned off except for our presenters, Jeffrey and Christine, Al and John, and we're going to go through a presentation. Feel free to type in any questions that you have in the chat area, and we'll get to those questions. And then later, if you'd like to stay on after we turn off the recording, you're welcome to join us later for any additional items. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeffrey and Christine.
Hi there. Happy to see everybody who's been on the boat before, and look forward to kind of sharing this question and answer and presentation about what we do on the David B with our workshops and how much fun they are. So Jeffrey's going to switch over here. What we're going to talk about tonight is a little bit about us, the different workshops and places that we go. We'll give an overview of the David B. We'll have FAQs time, recap, and then we'll do some questions and answers.
We're going to start with a little thing about each of us. The two of us bought the boat and spent 8 years restoring it. And the whole goal was to offer the trips like the ones that we're doing now in Southeast Alaska and in the San Juans.
And 2026 will be our 21st season. We finished our 20th season this year, and we're pretty excited to hit that milestone. Jeffrey began working in the tourism business on boats way back in 1990. He started on tall ships, and I started working on boats back in 2001 on a whale watch boat. And so with this, we sort of combined a bunch of stuff that we love doing together and got started on the David B.
And my name is Sarah, and I've been helping Jeffrey and Christine. Well, I first started back in 2012 doing some cat staff duties for them while they were up in Alaska. And then after a couple of years, began doing reservations. I was a passenger back in 2010. That's when I first met them. And it's just been happy to be able to be kind of their customer service, the shore support if they need things shipped to them, but also interacting with everybody who contacts us about joining us on our trips. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'm also an avid yarn artist, as I'm wearing a sweater that I've made myself. But just happy that everybody's here to join us tonight.
We start with John.
Sure.
Yeah, hi. My name is John D'Onofrio. I have been taking photographs for, as hard as it is for me to admit it, 50 years. I came to photography through painting. I was studying painting when I was in college and just kind of interested and fascinated by the magic of the darkroom. I enrolled in a photography class. I met a teacher who became my mentor, Arnold Henderson, and got pretty much became serious about photography at that time. Over the course of my life, I have I photographed all over, and I'll say that honestly, my favorite place to photograph is the David B. The opportunities for photography on this boat are amazing. My work's been published in many, many magazines. It's been shown in galleries and museums. And I am currently, and have been for, let's see, about 14 years, I publish and edit a quarterly magazine here in the Pacific Northwest called Adventures Northwest. And as I say, having the opportunity to explore in such an intimate way some of the most beautiful landscapes on Earth is a never-ending joy for me. I'm so happy to be doing this. Been doing it about 8 years now, I think. And I've taught in other venues, North Cascades Institute, for example, but there's nothing, honestly, like the David B.
So I'm Alan. My photographic life started, about 137 years ago. I'm obviously older than John.
Much older than John.
I was back in another life. I was a surveyor working in the bush in Alaska, and I had a camera. This was actually in the 70s. I had a camera, and so I was taking a lot of pictures. And I used to come home in the fall and do slideshows for friends. But then I ended up taking a black and white photography class, a darkroom class, and the woman who taught it was just beyond inspirational and opened my eyes to a whole world of what this medium could be and could become. And I haven't looked back. I ended up with doing a commercial photography business. Mostly did advertising and public relations, but I ended up working for artists and arts organizations. But I also had a darkroom and studio rental business, and that's where I started teaching. I figured out pretty quickly that the best way to drum up business for the darkroom was teach people how to use the darkroom. And that morphed into getting a job teaching photography at the University of Alaska in Anchorage. And then we moved to the Pacific Northwest here in Bellingham, and I started teaching at Western Washington University photography. And for the past 35 years, I've been teaching at Whatcom Community College here in Bellingham, and I'm about to start teaching some darkroom classes once again at a local art center in Linden, Washington. And then in 2017, John and I started teaching both on the David B. and at the North Cascades Institute, and we haven't looked back. It hasn't been stopped, and it's been fun ever since.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to we're going to show a couple pictures. We had a guest show up there.
A grandson guest?
Yeah. And we're going to show a couple pictures that kind of showcase some of John and Al's work to sort of give you a little idea of where they're coming from and what their inspiration is. And so I've got 3 pictures from each of them so that they can talk a little bit about what they're all about. Ready?
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a photograph. The thing that draws people to Southeast Alaska is obviously grandeur and the epic scale of the landscapes. And, there's no arguing that those subjects are inspiring and beguiling. But in addition to that, there are many, many quiet moments to be found as the boat slowly makes its way through the fjords, past these forests that one could, I think, correctly surmise are untrodden by human beings. Just beautiful open land, veiled by clouds, mysterious, partially revealed, but always partially hidden. I love that. And then there are the small details. This photograph was taken on a beach at a place called Wood Spit. Some of the most amazing tide pools ever. But in addition to this kind of thing, there are amazing opportunities for close-ups of the plant life and the various aspects of the shorelines, incredible rock formations, There's, I don't know. I think I've gone. How many trips have we done here? Do you remember? Like,
Oh God, I can't count that high. I have to take off my shoes.
something like 14, 15 workshops, 16 maybe that we've done. And every single time I'm amazed at the new details that I see that I've used before. And one of the beauties of Southeast Alaska is ice. And I love ice. I love as I mentioned before, I came to photography as a painter, and the painting style that I was attracted to was abstract expressionism. And you look at the surface of ice in beached icebergs or glaciers, ice floating by in the water, and the textures and the patterns are just amazing. And the light is constantly changing, creating almost cinematic display of light and color, just constantly engaging.
Hey, Al, you're up next.
Oh, that would be me.
Yeah.
Look, dueling cameras.
Yes.
I took that picture.
I actually I do find myself, John sort of alluded to this as well. I find myself attracted to the details, the things that we often just walk past and don't pay attention to. I actually have this is part of this series that's been ongoing for me for several years of photographing plant leaves. And I just love the textures and the relationships between the leaves as they interact with each other. And it's just endlessly fascinating for me. I'm also abstract images attract me as well. This is the water reflecting, the sun reflecting off the water and shimmering up on the underside of these rocks. But I just love the textures and shapes. That's one of the things that just fascinates me. Go ahead. Is there more?
Yeah, does Earl show up on your screen?
Yeah, I don't see Earl. I just see the rocks.
See Earl either.
What?
Oh, there's Earl. There's Earl. Earl was so cool. So this was at Pat Creek this past summer. God, it was so funny. There was conflicting information whether Earl was 3 years old or 5 years old, but he was a young male and he just posed for us. It was just hilarious. He walked all around us. He kept watching us. He'd sit and pose. He was what he really was curious, because he was young enough that he was not sure who these hairless apes were and what we were about. But he was just a kick to photograph, and this was just too much fun. Earl was just a kick.
We'll do the quick facts.
The David B is the platform for all these photography workshops that we do. The boat was built in the 20s, and we've restored it now so that it can operate in the 2020s and beyond. It's not a huge boat, which is part of the beauty of it. We can get into a lot of really small anchorages and places. And that's part of the 65 feet and only draws 7 feet. And then we have staterooms. We have 4 staterooms, and we can accommodate 8 guests. And in addition to that, our 2 photography instructors. And we have lots of amenities on there. Always on electricity. You can charge all your devices. And we definitely have no limit to having water and that kind of thing on the boat as well. So it's a great platform for doing photography workshops.
Well, now that we've had a chance to introduce ourselves to you, we thought we would give this a chance to do a poll here to ask the participants what kind of camera systems that they use. That way you can do that. So let me launch this poll, and we'll just give it a second. So everybody who's participating is welcome to answer what type of camera system you're using. You just pick a choice. And you'll notice that we also include cameras on your phone, because we know that a lot of times people do use that, and it's very convenient. It's on you at all times. And we have had people who participated in our workshops who've done just that. So we've got just a few more people to click their answers, and then we can and the poll here. I think. All right. Okay. So it looks like from the poll, about half are using Canon, and then about 40% are using Nikon, and then the others are using some other brand of camera systems when they take their photography. So with that, I'll let you get back to some of our presentations.
You have to click off of that screen with your mouse. And then on the screen again. One of the things that's nice, asking about the different kinds of camera equipment, Al is very well versed in almost all types of equipment, and he's definitely the go-to guy when we're doing one of these trips, when somebody has some sort of technical problem
Or question
about stuff.
I always complain in my photography class that people in the group are usually not smart enough to all buy the same camera, and worse than that, they all not all of them buy the camera that I own. So, consequently, I've figured out how everybody's cameras work now.
We do 3 types of trips, the 3 types of photography workshop trips. We do the ones with the coastal brown bears. We were talking about Earl in the previous slide there. We also do trips to Glacier Bay National Park and Preserve. Those trips are both in Alaska. And then at the end of our season, we come back to the Pacific Northwest and we do trips in the San Juan Islands. And so we'll tell you a little bit about each one of those styles of trips, starting with the coastal brown bears trip.
So
There's Earl.
did that show up?
Yeah, there's Earl.
There's Earl. Yep, yeah, he was a fan. We were all fans of Earl last year. So this is one of my favorite trips, and sort of what I've done is we're going to kind of go through what the itinerary is for this trip and all the trips, and with some highlights from the different areas that we'll be in. So we call this trip Alaska's Fjords and Coastal Brown Bears. It's an 8-day long trip, and the dates are May 25th through June 1st in 2026. And we have a little map right here that sort of shows we start out of Petersburg and then work our way up to Juneau. And Pat Creek, where we do the coastal brown bear watching, is the highlight of the trip. They're one of the highlights of the trip. And this kind of gives you an idea of about the distance that we will often get to the bears.
It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
Truly amazing.
Yeah. So once we leave Juneau, we head off to a place called Taku Harbor. And I really like this place because it does have a lot of historical things to photograph there. And Jeffrey, you really enjoy Taku.
I always think as part of an Alaska trip, you should have a little bit of time where you get to photograph, but also get a little bit of context about the human history in that area. And this Taku is an abandoned cannery site, started in the early 1900s. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff to photograph there. It was abandoned like 70 years ago.
You really get a chance to see the texture of time passing on the artifacts of man.
Yeah.
All these trips, in addition to having the brown bear viewing, all of our trips have really good opportunities for whale watching.
And particularly humpback whales.
Yep. And so we see a lot of humpbacks in that area.
So it's not uncommon when we leave Taku Harbor the next day and head towards Admiralty Island to come across humpback whales. And usually the second day we arrive on Admiralty Island. It is an island that is 1,600 square miles, and it hosts about 1,600 brown bears. But it also is a really, really beautiful place. It's got a lot of old growth forest. And on that second day, before we head up to Pat Creek, we spend some time in the forest. And these are sort of what it looks like. Did you have anything you wanted to answer? Yeah. And so give good an idea of what you might be looking at in the woods. Interesting plant life, bugs if you're into that sort of thing. And of course, more leaves, more texture, more. Yeah. Yeah, and and this Admiralty Island is really a very magical place to as far as I'm concerned. Because when you do get into the trees, there's a lot of stuff that kind of starts to pop out. And the time of year that we're there is kind of the beginning of some of the wildflowers as well. And so a lot of them are small, you got to get up close. But I think it's just this beautiful, beautiful area. And it's national monument as well.
So pristine.
Yes. And this is my bear porn picture. Because we usually spend most of day 3 and part of day 4 at Pat Creek. It is springtime when we're there, which is the courtship time of year. And I always feel like the interactions that we get while we're sitting there is really, really just incredible.
It's
Yes.
interesting because a lot of times, and you'll see this a little later, but at bear viewing areas, everybody flocks to those kinds of places in the fall because everybody wants to watch the bears fishing for salmon, which is certainly fun to watch. But watching them interact in the spring, I find way more interesting. That mating time and courtship time is just really watching that interaction is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I
There's
think it's one of my favorite things too, because it can be really subtle behaviors that we're seeing. And so it's a lot of fun to try to capture those as well.
such a diversity of behaviors to observe. In addition to, the mating aspect of it, we've seen the little cubs kind of learning how to be bears, boxing each other in the shallow water. We've seen moms with tiny, tiny, tiny little cubs, and it's just uh, it's like a day, and actually we spent 2 days there where it's a constantly changing story that makes the bears. It doesn't feel like the bears are performing for us in any way. It feels like we've just been, amazingly given an audience in this natural state for the bears. Doesn't Admiralty Island have the highest concentration of brown bears in the world? Is that
I
right?
believe that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is nice. So we often see quite a number of bears while we're there. Added this picture to give you sort of an idea to get to that bear viewing spot. It's about a quarter-mile walk, and we walk in the same places where the bears walk. And while we're there, there's often a forest service ranger that's there that kind of scopes out, lets us know when we can go over to the viewing area. But we are walking in the same places where bears often walk. And here's a picture of a typical day sitting around waiting for the perfect picture.
And note the fact that we're the only ones there.
Yeah.
We're almost always outnumbered by bears when we're there.
Rarely is there any. Every once in a while, there's another small group, but more often than not, we're the only ones there, as opposed to Brooks Falls.
This is the contrast.
Yeah.
Brooks Falls is a well-known spot with a bear viewing platform. It's also in National Park and Preserve. But this is not what you get on one of our trips. We definitely don't go where the crowds are. And we get some very good bear viewing as part of it.
I think at Brooks Falls now they give you a pager. And when the pager, it's like if you're waiting for a table in a restaurant, and when it goes off, that means you've got your half an hour or whatever to watch the bears, and then it's time for the next person. While at Pat Creek, we spend hours and hours, and it's a world of difference.
Over a day and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here's a cub of the year from last season with her mother, and yeah, so that's like one of the things that was in May. That was middle of May last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh no, your trip was the end of May, so that's the end of May. Yeah. So when we leave Pat Creek again, we're back to whale watching. This was a whale that came quite close to us. John took this picture, and if I remember right, your batteries died. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that this picture?
But we've had these kind of experiences with whales so many times where I mean, I've been on whale watching trips in other places in Hawaii, etc., where you see a fluke out in the distance, and that's exciting. But I mean, so many times you could have jumped off the boat, the back of the
He
whale.
almost bumped into the boat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is checking us out.
we did actually one time. Remember the time that they were feeding around the boat and they did bump into each
Yeah,
other.
bumped into the boat.
Yeah.
One of the things I think is really cool about these photography workshops is that most photographers have segregated themselves into landscape photographers or wildlife photographer camps. And these trips give you a lot of both. And it's really fun actually to watch people who are diehard wildlife photographers look at a scene like this and have to jump up because they need a picture of it because they've suddenly decided that maybe landscape isn't so bad. And the reverse is true. I mean, it's just really interesting because there is so much material to photograph. This is a wonderful picture that John took. And when I saw this, I was like, I remember when John had to get up from the dinner table because this was more important than dinner.
Yeah. Yeah. So this
Much more important than-
yeah. So
and
this
considering how good the dinner was, that's saying something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is sort of leading up to what the 5th day of the trip is, and we usually end up in Holcomb Bay, which is the entrance to the Tracy Arm Fjords Terror Wilderness, and Woodspit, which is where that picture of that sea anemone was taken earlier, and it's a great place to explore the beach. If we're lucky, we've got a really, really low tide, and if we're unlucky, we've got a really, really beautiful forest to explore, and you can't be unlucky with either of those.
And there again, I don't think we've ever seen another human being would spit.
Never.
Yeah. Yeah, so you might notice that Kathy in this picture, she has some rubber boots on. We provide the boots because there are times and places that you want to be in the water taking pictures and also getting in and out of the skiff, which we'll talk about the skiff a little bit later. So there's a picture Al took, and this was a wood spit as well.
Woodspit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to talk about some of the cool stuff we see on the beach, that'd be.
Yeah, this is, like I said, it's all about textures and details. Seaweed everywhere. Like you said, it's one of the best places anywhere for tide pools. And it's never the same. It's just so much fun every time we go. It's one of my favorite spots. Although I have a lot of maybe favorite spots.
I know, I think they're all my favorite spots. Yeah, some more sea moss that Al took this picture. And I don't know, was that Woodspit or was that somewhere else?
I don't remember. This might have been Woodspit as well. I honestly don't remember. I'd have to go look it up. But I just love the textures and the detail.
Yeah. But again, if you are into the critters, we've seen everything from porcupines to squirrels to black bears on this beach.
Moose.
And moose now, yeah. So we're starting to see moose there from time to time as well. And I'll let Jeffrey sort of talk about Fjords Terror because this is one of his favorite places.
We anchor outside of Fjords Terror and we take our skiff and go into the back of it. And there's all kinds of stuff to explore back there, amazing landscape photography options. But also, we're on our way in and out of there. We're able to go, not when the Fjords Terror looks like this, but when it's nice and calm. And we can also be over there watching the terror run out like this.
This is why it's called Fjords Terror.
Yeah.
Poor Fjord was there at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So this little narrow constriction is a reversing tidewater rapids. So when the tide goes up, it gets really calm. And just before it turns, that's when Jeffrey takes everybody in the back. And then at some point it turns and then they ride the ebb back out.
This is the kind of stuff that you see in the back of it. This actually wasn't a staged picture. This is what people look like in the skiff when they're taking pictures of all these things.
And there's that waterfall again.
So a comment about that, there's like hundreds of these waterfalls all up and down Fjords Terror. And I've often said that anywhere else in North America, any one of these waterfalls would have a 600-car parking lot and a gift shop. And these don't even have names.
There are what? There's a bunch of waterfalls that are taller than Yosemite Falls.
Yeah.
Right? In Fjords Terror. I mean, 3,000-foot waterfalls that lack names. It's incredible. You know, it's a lot like Yosemite, in fact, in the way it looks. Obviously, with water instead of land at the bottom, and also, generally speaking, there will be the other 7 or 8 people in the boat, as opposed to the 75,000 people that are occupying Yosemite Valley at any given moment.
We rarely see anybody else back there.
Right.
We're usually the only boat in there. It really is. It is so much like Yosemite Valley without the people. Imagine Yosemite Valley where instead of in a car, you're in a boat and you're the only ones there. It's truly.
And there's not a building. There's not a sign. Well, now I think there is one. There's maybe one sign. There's not a trail. I mean, it is pristine, untracked wilderness on all sides.
So one of the things I was going to mention about this image in particular just made me think of this. One of the things that I strive for in my photographs is I want the viewer to get a sense of what it felt like when I was there, standing there, and that's what I hope this image is about, is how it felt.
Back to waterfalls.
Back to just another unnamed,
just another waterfall.
Gigantic waterfall.
There are also critters that we can see, minks, and I think I have one more critter in this one. And of course, Fjords terror, we occasionally will run into black bears.
The last couple days of the trip involve going to look at Tidewater Glacier. Typically on these trips, we go to Dawes Glacier. And one of the things that we can do with the David B is we can get up to about a quarter mile away, which when you get there seems plenty close. And we can watch the glacier calving from there. They generally haven't ever disappointed us, giving us at least a little bit of calving and sometimes a lot. But there's just fantastic forms in all the icebergs that are drifting around, and the area up close to the glacier is an amazing spot because there's very little vegetation down on the rocks down low where the glacier recently retreated. And it's just such a really amazing spot to be able to go to and spend some hours taking photographs.
Yeah, and I've always sort of felt being in front of a glacier as one of those very humbling experiences when you're that quarter mile up close and there's a 300-foot wall of ice right in front of you. It definitely changes your perspective.
And a chunk of ice the size of a 7-Eleven comes falling off and splashes into the water.
Yeah.
Like this one.
Yeah.
Or that one.
So many beautiful icescapes, both, epic in scale and very intimate in scale.
This is what I was describing earlier.
Sometimes the ice doesn't sit still.
Right. You're looking at the right moment, you get to see some pretty cool things.
And what we typically do is, Jeffrey's a genius in positioning the boat so that it's far enough away to be safe, but close enough to allow for great photography. And he holds the boat in position so that you can, for, an hour, you can stand there and watch the ice. And it's hypnotizing and mesmerizing. And occasionally it's stupefying because these giant cascades of ice come crashing down and, you're there with your lens ready to go. Everybody finds that to be just like such an exciting photographic moment.
Yeah, and then everybody asks, "Did you get it? Did you get it?"
I always like to tell people that the last day of the trip isn't just a throwaway day. We aren't just going to race into Juneau. We've had really good wildlife viewing on those last days. We've had a lot of amazing other experiences too. We tend to get into Juneau about 1, but getting to stop and see humpback whales feeding isn't uncommon. We've also seen orca whales along the way on their way into Juneau. And so I tell people to keep their cameras out until we get back to the dock, because you never know what still might show up.
Yeah, because we've had a trip where we had the fenders out, we had the line set up, we were just about to turn into to the harbor. We were 5 minutes away from the dock, and some killer whales popped up, and we extended the trip for about another hour or so while we watched whales. And so, always important to keep your camera out. So here's a little sort of recap of that trip. May 25th through June 1st. It departs Juneau, it's round trip, and that has some extra information on it about what we see and do. And then if you're interested in more information on it, that QR code will take you to the website with all this sort of information on it as well.
The next type of photography trip that we do is trips that go from Juneau round trip to Glacier Bay National Park and Preserve.
So you can kind of see here, it starts in Juneau and goes up both arms in Glacier Bay, and is an amazing trip.
So the area just outside of Juneau on the way towards Glacier Bay is really well known for the humpback whales that feed in that area. There are lots of whale watch boats cruising around in that area. So there's some cooperative help in trying to find the humpback whales. But we have seldom had a trip where we didn't have a really good whale show and see quite a few humpbacks on our way to Glacier Bay on that first day.
And it's also an area where killer whales are commonly spotted. So the first day is usually a whale watching day. And then also there's a lot of opportunities for instruction, getting to know what the boat's like, and sort of getting all settled in.
Glacier Bay is quite a ways away from Juneau for us. And so we actually show up in Glacier Bay National Park and enter the park on about the middle of day 2. And one of the spots that we go to is the South Marble Island. It's really well known for the birds that are there, but also for the sea lions that haul out on this spot.
Yeah, it's a great place to see puffins and kittiwakes and different cormorants. Yeah, it's a really fun spot, and one of the highlights of the second day. And wildflowers. So we're going to that's actually a later season one, but there are a lot of wildflowers that are coming up in Glacier Bay. And puffins.
Out on the outer coast of the Southeast Alaska, there are some places where puffins are more common, but most of our trips, we aren't in a spot where we see them other than the trips in Glacier Bay. We often, on day 3, go up to this spot that's called McBride Glacier, and we spend some time viewing it. It's been receding relatively quickly in the last few years, so it's not super active, although it's still a stunning thing to see. But we also are able to go ashore on a spot in there right near the glacier, which is a lot of fun to go explore.
And you can see from that photo how cool the skiff is, where it's just so easy to get on and off that skiff. It makes shore excursions really easy and delightful.
We had this skiff custom built for exactly what I'm doing right here, going up to the beach and being able to drop the front and walk right out.
And it's another sort of image of coming into McBride. I think, is this, John, this is your image, I think? Yeah. And in this picture, you can kind of tell how quickly this glacier has receded as well. That must have been a couple, 3 years ago, and it looks like it's got a little bit more of a face on it. And it's one of the first places in Glacier Bay you'll get the opportunity to start exploring ice up close.
Ice sculptures.
Yeah.
One of the things we do at that same spot is there's a place where icebergs often get grounded out and as the tide goes out. And so it's often lots of fun there to go wander around and take pictures right up close of icebergs.
And that place where Jeffrey was standing on the skiff, that was the scene that he was looking at. When we first started coming into Glacier Bay, a glacier sat in this valley, and now it doesn't. But it's opened up some new territory for us to explore. It's a little bit of otherworldly feel when you're walking around up in there. McBride Glacier is home to some oyster catchers. They're really reliable, and if you stay a certain distance away from them, you can get a really nice picture of them. They're very territorial, and they will let you know when you get too close. And of course, kittiwakes. We're there during uh, nesting season, and so one of the lucky things is once in a while we get close-up images of kittiwakes' chicks.
There are thousands and thousands and thousands of kittiwake nests on the cliffs that we pass beside. It's remarkable.
Yeah. And when we do go ashore, there are interesting plants as well to take pictures if you like plant photography. And then I think we
What I think about is nice or is amazing about this here is all the different scales that we're talking about for photography. The wide expanses, the big landscapes, the tiny flowers at the other end.
and
Then we move over to the other side of Glacier Bay. That first area in Muir Inlet that we were talking about has virtually no other traffic. There's occasionally a few other boats and maybe another small tour boat. Then day 4, we move over to the side that's quite a bit busier with some more cruise ships and that kind of stuff. But still, almost every night we're anchored somewhere all by ourselves. And we get to go. There are 2 different glaciers here that we can walk right up to. They've receded far enough that there's a big sandbar out in front of them. Makes for amazing photos.
But on the way there, along with the humpback whales that we'll likely see, is a place called Gloomy Knob, and it's a really common place to spot mountain goats. And here's a little bit more of Reed Glacier. So again, lots of texture. And then Lamplugh. And I know, John, you really like Lamplugh a lot.
Yeah, Lamplugh is a place where we go ashore, and there's this sort of lagoon that is formed full of ice, and we can walk around it on the sandbar, and we think of it as an ice garden because there are these beached icebergs there. Some of them as tall as maybe a 2-3 story building, and just carved into an infinity of sculptural patterns and glowing with this incredible blue color. There's this concept. I think this originated in the Renaissance, the idea of sacre bleu, which was considered during the Renaissance to be a pigment used by the painters that reflected the color of heaven. And as such, painters were prohibited from using that color. It was considered blasphemous. Well, these ice gardens are completely filled with the color of heaven. It's really unbelievable.
And here you can see people in all sorts of directions.
Point your camera, there's a photograph.
Yeah.
You could spend the rest of your life on this sandbar as a photographer and not run out of things to be amazed by.
And this is one of Al. Is this Alice? That's your picture. I think that's Reed, isn't it?
I think this is Reed, correct.
Yeah. But you can get a feel of that, how much that blue just sort of sits with you. And this, I think, is a John image. And sort of also shows that sculpture kind of quality to some of the ice that we're looking at.
Little tiny detail scenes like this they're literally every time you turn around. I mean, you just can't press the shutter enough.
And Jeffrey.
We've recently started anchoring at this spot. I love it. It's at the end of Johns Hopkins Inlet, and you can see all the way down Johns Hopkins. I think this view is like the quintessential Glacier Bay picture. Multiple glaciers coming in addition to Johns Hopkins. There's a glacier right in front of the pilot house of the boat there on the side, and then there's like 3 or 4 more along there, and a bunch of them up high. And this spot, I just think it's amazing. We get to sit there overnight and watch the scene change with the light, and it's one of my favorite spots for us to anchor.
And you can see Lamplugh from there too.
Yeah, you can look off in the other direction and see.
To the left of what we're seeing is Lamplugh, right?
Yeah.
And then after dinner, you can just go and climb up onto the upper deck and relax in a chair with your camera on your lap and be mesmerized.
It's really nice too at this time of year. The light lasts really long. The days are really long, right in the early part of the season.
18 hours of daylight,
and so the changes in the light happen very slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we go to Marjorie Glacier on the last day that we're in the park there, and oftentimes with the skiff, we go up there and take a look at it, but we also can spend time in the David B up in front of Marjorie Glacier.
The mountains that are behind Marjorie are the Fairweather Range, which are how high? Like what, 14, 15? 16?
Yeah, Mount Fairweather is, I think, 15 and change.
It's just spectacular. It's like looking at the Himalayas.
Yeah.
From sea level.
Correct.
I mean, obviously they're not as high as the Himalayas, but very dramatic because of the ice.
Yeah.
This is a spot that we often go ashore, also littered with icebergs. And that's Marjorie Glacier in the background of that. And this is off to the side. It's this sandbar that developed after the glacier receded. And it's a really good spot to watch the glacier, but also to watch or to do close-up pictures of the ice.
This is, I think, an owl picture, kind of some artistic quality that Marjorie gives us.
Marjorie's ice is very white. It has some streaks in it, but compared to a lot of the other glaciers, Marjorie is very brightly colored. If your Zoom screen is set up so that all the participants are over on the right-hand side, you almost can't see that down at the very bottom there, there's all of us gathered in the skiff. This picture is taken by Christine from the boat.
Which is a little over a mile away.
Yeah, with a zoom. And I just really like how that looks with all of us over there watching the glacier, but up close to it. With the skiff, we stay like the same kind of distance away, and this is all foreshortened to make it look like we're quite a bit closer.
But we are a quarter mile away.
Yeah.
And standing, because the skiff is that stable.
That's how stable the skiff is. Exactly.
And it's interesting, occasionally there'll be a cruise ship that comes up to the head of the inlet, but they're miles away. And we see the people lined up on the decks of the cruise ship looking at us longingly, wishing, oh my goodness, imagine what it would be like to be there.
Those people in that little tiny boat. There's sort of a feel for some of the size of the ice that can come off the glaciers.
The end of that day, we end up in Shag Cove, which is out in the front country of Glacier Bay National Park. We're still within the park. There's a picture showing some of the activity you might see from humpback whales. Glacier Bay Park has huge number of whales that feed in the park, and they're protected areas for them to feed. And so they have actually been doing really well in there. So it's very common, especially in that southern section of the park, to see whales feeding. And the scenery's not all bad from there either.
Right? That time of year, there's a lot of cottonwoods. I put this in here mostly because I love the cottonwoods and the way that they smell. Glacier Bay in the spring, because it had rapid retreating of a glacier that filled the entire bay back during, I think, Captain Vancouver's time. The forest in the front country is very new. And so there are a lot of cottonwoods. And I just think like the perfume of cottonwoods in June is just something you just don't want to miss.
And the super pale green.
Yeah, is really
I was just going to say, I love the light green when they're first
Yeah.
leafing out.
Yeah.
It's like a green haze. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And again, more humpback whales to see on the way back. And so leaving Glacier Bay, we go back out the way we came. And so we've got half a day of getting around to where we go anchor, and in that area between there and then when we do get back to Juneau, we have 2 days where we might have the opportunity to see, fingers crossed, bubble netting humpback whales and some other animals. I forgot to mention earlier that sea otters are really prolific in Glacier Bay. If you want to see a sea otter, this is a trip to go on. You won't be disappointed. And then also,
Farmers.
yeah.
Initially, we stop for every sea otter that we come across. And after an hour or so of doing that, we don't stop for them as much, unless they're doing something really interesting or there's a huge group of them.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that we do see lots and lots of sea otters.
Yeah. And then, back to Juneau and another opportunity to see humpback whales and to see this really amazing feeding technique that these whales have developed. So again, this gives you a little bit of an overview of what makes Glacier Bay really amazing. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and just an incredible place for photography. There are so few people that are allowed in there each day. That's another reason that makes it even more special to get to be in there. The cruise ships, there are 2 that come in a day. And once they're out of there, it feels a lot like, we're some of the very, very few people that are getting to experience this incredible location.
Seems impossible, but there is a sense of intimacy.
Yeah. And Sarah.
So now that we've had a chance to show you a couple of some of our trips in Alaska, we thought we'd give our panelists a break to take a sip of water and ask the participants kind of what are some of the types of photography that you like to take. So I'm going to launch another poll here in terms of what kinds of things that you like to take. Is it landscapes, flora? You can do multiple choice. You don't have to limit yourself to just one answer here, but we certainly want to hear from you some of the things that interest you. And maybe you might be inspired by some of the things that you've seen so far this evening. So I'll just give it a few seconds for everybody who wants to participate to chime in. And just as a reminder, while people are indicating what photography subjects they're interested, if you do have questions about any of the trips or what have you, and we're going to be getting into what it's like on the David B, feel free to type in any of your questions into the chat room. So it looks like we've got just a few more people who might want to participate, but otherwise we've got pretty much everybody who's given a chance to end we're going to end the poll here and I'll just share the answers. So 100% of the participants who did answer said that they were interested in landscapes and in wildlife. So we've got that covered. About 60% were also interested in flora, 40% in macro, about a quarter in people, and about 40% in about textures. So I think that's pretty much all the subjects. And then I will let you guys go back to our third workshop.
The third style of trip we do are trips in the San Juan Islands. These are based out of Bellingham. They're round trip out of Bellingham. And they're in the fall in this area. And in the autumn, it's really beautiful out in the San Juans. The days are a little bit shorter, but the middle of the day is often very sunny and wonderful. And there's a lot of clear nights as well.
So this is a 5-day trip and starts out of Bellingham, like Jeffrey said, and we do sort of a circumnavigation of the San Juans and visit a number of different places. Our typical trips will head us over to Susha Island, which is probably one of the most, I think, probably my favorite island of all the San Juans, and it's one that only is serviced, you can only get to by either boat or airplane. Or float planes. So it's a really great place to go, and it has some really unique things to take pictures of.
Despite the nice weather, the San Juans at this time of year tend to be pretty empty of people.
Yeah.
Other than on the weekend days. So it's kind of nice out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is John's specialty.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is sandstone formation that is known as tafoni. It's caused by erosion, combination of erosion and algae. People come from all over the world. It's become something of a highly desired photographic subject. The word tafoni is Italian, and in Europe, this is something that photographers have been looking for a long time. The San Juan Islands have some of the best tafoni in the world, and there are many, many places where we get to cruise right along the shoreline in the skiff and pass by these eroded sandstone cliffs that are just spectacular, and particularly in the end of the day light, when they're radiant and they glow. It's really, if you're into texture, you can't do much better than this.
San Juan Islands does have wildlife. There's a Steller sea lion, so we are often able to find those in the Susha Island area. They're always fun to photograph. And this time of year, we start getting some birds like black turnstones, and this is right in that tafoni area. So not only do you get good rocks, but you also get some really interesting birds as well.
And oftentimes you get interesting birds on really good rocks.
Right? It's the best. So you got wildlife and landscape at the same time.
We make a day of going to Peytos Island. There's a beautiful lighthouse that's kind of quintessential San Juan Islands. The Mount Baker in the
Baker in the background, yeah.
Background.
And usually mushrooms start popping up this time of year. They're kind of fun to get down close and look at. Mm-hmm. Ferns are still out and they have a lot of texture to them as well. And
yeah, the forests are beautiful.
Yeah, and you can find some really, really nice wildflowers that are still in bloom. And on a nice warm day, you might even find a little honeybee. Stewart Island is another island that doesn't have ferry boat access. It has a small community of people on it, but there's a nice lighthouse that we like to walk out to, and again, some really interesting rocks.
It feels really remote when you're out there,
mm-hmm.
Even though there are gravel roads on the island, and there is a lot of natural stuff to photograph.
And
as well as
yaks.
How many islands have yaks?
Very, very limited.
Very limited place with yaks. So this is one of our favorite San Juan Islands. Our San Juan Island stop is to go and look at the yaks on Stewart Island.
And they make great photographic subjects.
They do.
They're very accommodating.
Yes, they are. And the madrona trees are also another highlight of taking photographs in the San Juans. Jones Island and Cypress Islands, a couple other islands that we enjoy visiting. They are uninhabited islands with trails and campsites and things. And So they're fun to go to for short walks, longer walks, and then also the one year we were graced by a barred owl that watched us all take pictures of him, and it was also another accommodating bird, like herons. We see a lot of herons in the San Juan Islands and landscapes. And I think this is at Cyprus, right?
Juan Islands, yeah, just off the coast of Cyprus.
And then that takes us to our last day and back to Bellingham. And on that last day, with all the last days, one of the things we do is John and Al set up a printer and we print photographs on the last days of our trips.
Yeah, one of the things we haven't really talked a lot about is the instruction in Lightroom that we offer on these trips. As Al was mentioning, he teaches at the college level, this sort of thing. And so throughout all of these trips, we have the opportunity to really do a deep dive on processing images, which culminates in actually taking the process from visualizing the scene all the way through to having a finished, beautiful print.
For me, half the fun of photography has always been what happens to the image after it leaves the camera. The possibilities are endless.
And Sarah's gonna pop up with her last poll.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've just shared the 3 types of workshops that we offer, a few in Alaska. And here's the final poll of just kind of for our participants to kind of share what some of your experience has been. Is this, you've never been on a workshop, a photography workshop, not just on the David B, but maybe just your first time, but you haven't attended yet, or 4 or more, you've lost count. So feel free just to answer there. And we'll just take a few moments for people to participate who want to participate in the poll. We'll leave it open for a second. And then as we get into kind of what it's like, not just the places we go, but where, what it's like to have a workshop on the David B, we'll get into that a little bit more. And again, if you do have questions, feel free to type them into the chat room. So it looks like we've got a few more seconds. A couple more people can participate in the poll if they like. All right. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. And so far, it looks like about 40% of our participants have been in 4 or more workshops. About a third have never been in a photo workshop experience, but they are interested. And then just a couple who are either first time that they've scheduled but haven't been on one yet, or have only done one photography workshop so far. So with that, I'm going to close that poll out and let you expand more on what John was talking about earlier.
So this is kind of a list of all the different things that we do on a trip, and we'll talk about each kind of one. We've talked a lot about the photography. This is a picture of our skiff, which we definitely are very able to get into a lot of really cool and interesting spots because we have this shallow draft skiff. That's good for.
As we were saying earlier, it's an amazing platform for photography. It's just incredibly stable. It's actually really easy to work from a photography standpoint.
So true. I have been nothing but frustrated in my life trying to take photographs from a boat up until this. Yeah.
There's also ample opportunities for photography from the deck of the David B. These are some dolls porpoises that were kind enough to come over and play in front of us while we're underway.
We can get up to waterfalls really nice and close, which is always exciting. There's plenty of waterfalls, as we talked about earlier, and everyone is different and everyone has a personality that's fun to get to know. And then here's a beach at McBride with photographers all around. And then this is a picture from Lamplugh Glacier, kind of puts a little bit of scale to the people in the ice gardens and the glacier. Some people like to get low. Don't mind sitting on the rocks to get that picture.
Despite their white pants.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say that.
My mother would never have been happy with me.
Yeah. I'm not
My
allowed to
mom
wear
would have
white.
expected it of me.
I am not allowed to wear white.
So there's in between the places we go ashore, there is time while we're underway on the David B going to the next place. And while there are like often wildlife photography opportunities there is quite a bit of time that we get to spend on the David B. And a lot of that time is taken up with Al teaching and John teaching about the Lightroom. This is our screen that we can pull down and we can teach a class in there.
And we also have a lot of time to do show and tell. So
I was just going to say, we try to do at least every other night sharing of images of it from everybody in the group and talking about what we've done, what we can do, et cetera, et cetera. And so we get a chance to share our images with each other.
There's so much to be gained from that experience as we are all, experiencing the same stimuli, and to see how the interpretations vary so much from person to person really, I think, helps expand one's photographic vision for me.
There's lots of time for personal photo processing too while we're underway.
yeah,
And that's also a time where John and I can work with people individually, one-on-one as well, and solving individual problems as needed.
Yeah, we do have those lap desks. So if you like to work with a mouse, we have something that you can run your mouse with and then set your laptop on. So it's really nice. And lots of smiles. And this sort of shows the some of the pictures that we get at the end of the trip and everybody's images.
You guys talked about this a little bit, but maybe John, do you want to talk about this at the end of the trip?
Yeah, we have a wonderful printer on board, and then typically on the last day of the trip, after sharing images in show and tells over the course of the trip, we offer the opportunity to all participants to have an image printed, and Al is just brilliant as a printer. So everybody goes home with a gallery quality, ready to frame print.
A 12 by 18 image.
Right. We have, mailers so that you can roll the prints up and put them in mailers, get them home safely.
And this is something that other photography workshops don't seem to do.
As far as I know, unless it's specifically a printing workshop, I don't think any other photography workshop actually makes prints. But I've always thought that, well, when I first started doing this, if you didn't have a print, you didn't have a photograph. But I still believe an image isn't finished until it's a print. There's just nothing to compare with the tactile quality of actually holding something in your hand. Like that.
As this.
Yes. And I think I saw Kelly maybe joined us a little bit at the beginning. And so if that is you, Kelly, I'm excited to see you at Pat Creek this year. And yeah, and then the food. So as some of you know, I am the cook on the boat, and I cook on a wood-fired cook stove. And I love to spoil my guests. So here's a few of the things that you can count on. So fresh seafood, get most of my seafood locally, whether it's salmon, halibut, black cod, shrimp. I'll get that from local places in Juneau. And crepes, do all sorts of different things. I make my own bread, and sometimes we would have a lunch like this. This is a tomato bisque with sourdough bread and salad and some fresh crab. And of course, croissants, because I do like making croissants. That's a last day tradition on the David B, where I make everybody chocolate croissants, regular croissants, jelly-filled croissants, and some cinnamon rolls.
It's not uncommon that people refuse to leave the boat after the croissants.
I always tell people bring stretch pants.
Definitely, stretch pants. Yeah. And one of the things we're going to do here, I think it's the next slide, we're going to talk about the skiff first.
This is our second skiff in the last few years that we've had custom built for us. It's got this beautiful bow door. It's got a seat for everybody. We can go right up to the beach like I was talking about earlier, and it's easy to walk on and walk off. And it's super stable. Also goes through the floating ice pretty nicely, and so we can get up to a lot of really cool spots.
And now, you want to say anything about? So
this is a little video showing the inside of the boat and what it looks like.
Hi, I'm Christine.
I'm Jeffrey.
And we're the owners of the motor vessel David B.
And we're going to take you on a little tour here.
So come on. Welcome to the David B's galley. This is my favorite part of the boat, not only because it's where I spend all of my time cooking, but it's also because where we can sit 8 people at the table, we share all of our meals together and lots of stories. One of the things that's really special about the David B's galley is that I cook on a wood-fired cook stove. I use local seafood, vegetables if I can find them, and then I bake a lot of bread and pastries on the boat, everything from sourdoughs to croissants and pain au chocolat. Having a wood-fired stove is something unique on a lot of boats, but it's something that really makes the David B feels warm and comfy and inviting. Besides spoiling my passengers with great things like fresh-made croissants and artisan breads, I also like to treat them to fresh-made ice cream on the boat. This part of the boat is what we call the coffee area. And here we have coffee, decaf, and hot water. Our coffee is our own personal roast. We also have hot tea, cocoa, both dark chocolate and a white chocolate. And in the mornings, when people first come up and they're just starting to think about their day, I have a little journal book right here that people can do a writing prompt or a little art prompt, and it's something that we all kind of like to share. So moving on from the coffee station, we also have this drink station here. This has a place where you can fill your water bottle, wash your hands. We have an ice maker, and then also a beer cooler right down here. And this space is the saloon.
This space is a great space. We've got these benches on either side that people can sit on to see out. We have a library over here. We also have a cute little gnome stove over in the corner that keeps the place nice and cozy warm. Above my head, there's a screen that we can swing around to the front of the room. And we also have a projector over here that we use during our photography workshop classes. Now let's go look up in the pilot house. We do a lot of teaching classes for navigation kind of stuff, and this space makes an awesome place for that. People can play with the plotter, they can zoom in and out and look at our course. When we built this, we jokingly called this the captain's seat over here, and I never sit in it because there's always at least one person, one guest sitting in it, usually 3 back here on this side. A lot of times in the evenings, this spot up here is really calm and nice to be in. When we aren't actually underway, people come up here and sit and drink a glass of wine, stare out the window at the beautiful scenery. Now we're going to go down and look at the staterooms down below. So this is the forward end. We have a bathtub with a shower, and we also have a toilet and a sink in here. So this is the Kita stateroom. It has 2 bunks. They have their own little sink, and they have a head over here. The next cabin back is the Chinook cabin. This cabin has a convertible bunk. It can be either made up in the twin bunk arrangement like it's in now, or we can move this lower bunk up and make it into a queen size bunk. The next cabin back here is the sockeye cabin. This one always has a queen size bed, and then they have a head over here and they have their sink in the head over here. So the next one back here is the coho cabin. They have the same split bunk that can also be made up into a queen size bed. And then over on this side, they have a head with a little sink. Now we're in the engine room. This is our main engine from 1929, original engine in the boat. It's a 3-cylinder Washington S-step. It makes 100 horsepower and 325 RPM. and it sounds like a big sewing machine when it's running. You can stand right here next to it at full throttle and have a loud conversation with somebody. Now we're on the upper deck.
And this is where we keep our skiff and our kayaks.
It's also a really great spot up here to hang out, especially when we're up in front of the glaciers watching the glaciers calve. It's good for wildlife watching as well, just because you're up high and you can see down. Thanks for coming with us on our little tour.
And we hope you'll contact us soon and join us on the David B. And that's kind of what we have to share about our photography workshops and a little bit about the boat as well. And so I think with that, we're close to the end here. We've got a couple testimonials to pop up. What people are saying and that they've enjoyed trips with us. And some ways people said that being on a photography workshop could be life-changing and epic and all of that. And do you have anything you want to say about the trips?
One thing I would say is that we often get folks who have been on many workshops prior, and I think it's not an overstatement to say that virtually 100% of them describe their workshop on the David B as the best one of their lives.
We offer a lot of things that aren't in a lot of other workshops. Photo printing, the instruction in Lightroom, combination of lots of landscape with lots of wildlife and lots of macro opportunities and lots of wonderful food that Christine has made to go with it.
And lots of time to explore. There's time where you have the opportunity to kind of wander a little bit and look for the images that you want to take. And it's not just going to some place where you've seen a million of the same pictures, you set up your tripod or you stand in the same spot. You're going to get something that's unique to your style and to who you are.
And it's not just a tour. It's not just we're going here and go over there and point your camera and have fun. It's also instruction and trying to improve your skills and become a better photographer all around.
I love the difference between the first night when we do the show and tells and the last night in terms of seeing how much people improve in a few short days of being out there and spending a lot of time thinking about their images.
The other thing that's striking is how enjoyable it is to be in a group where there's a shared passion and beauty, basically 24/7, day after day, of being surrounded by beauty. And the experience on the David B isn't, let's check this one off the list and go to the next one. There's a genuine enthusiasm and love for the landscapes and for the wildlife, and it's palpable. People share it, and it stays with you even after the trip is done.
I think a lot of people, when they sign up, they think they're going to get, photography workshops. They're expecting the landscapes, but I don't think that they realize, because of the pace of the trips themselves, how it's really almost like a retreat as well as a workshop. So I think that's one thing that people don't realize that they're getting when they sign up with us.
We thank you guys for spending this time with us to kind of explore what we do. And I think in a minute here, Sarah will open up questions and answers.
Yeah. So again, if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask any of the presenters about the trips, anything you saw in particular about any of the particular trips, or a question specifically for one of the presenters, please let me know. Just type it into the chat room here. Make sure that you're sharing it with myself when you type in that message. I don't see any messages coming through at this time, Christine. I'm not sure if you're seeing them since you started the meeting as the host, but some of the questions that I often get, of course, are like, what what equipment should I bring? And then, of course, I always refer them to Al as far as that, or Christine about what lenses you should bring. Should you bring a tripod? Do you want to expand on that a little bit? We haven't really talked about
The answer is
equipment
yes. You'll definitely want a long lens, but you might also want a wider lens. I would, as far as lenses go, I would bring whatever you've got. You don't necessarily have to carry it with you everywhere we go. The other question that comes up often is, do you need a tripod? And up until recently, we actually insisted that you had to bring a tripod. It was almost a requirement. But anymore, and we can go into the details of this on the boat, but anymore with the current versions of a lot of software, a tripod is becoming less and less necessary. Certainly bring it if you feel comfortable with it, but don't feel obligated if you don't have one. Like I said, it's becoming less and less necessary.
Sarah, are you picking that up?
Yeah, I see that there might be a question from Brianna. If you would like to just type that into the message down below, I'd be happy to answer that question for you. If you just type that in for us, that'd be great. And then we'll go into that. Some of the other questions that I often get, these are more general about, what should I plan to pack going on my trip for the David B. And of course, we always say bring layers. Obviously, for our photography workshop, bring your photography equipment, but don't worry about having to bring lots of clothes, but make sure you make yourself comfortable and that sort of thing. I do have one question that has come in from Monica. At home, we work on a desktop computer. Should we buy a laptop for their trip? And I guess I would ask Al and John
a laptop would be ideal. Bringing your desktop is not real convenient.
Yeah.
But having a laptop, that's primarily how we're working is with laptops. With Adobe, your Adobe subscription is valid on 2 computers. So if you have, and the reason for that is a lot of people have a desktop and a laptop.
People have done it on a tablet, but that's not nearly.
It's not ideal.
Ideal.
But it's certainly easier than bringing your desktop.
Right.
Because then you'd have to bring your desk.
Right.
A tablet would potentially work, but it's not ideal. The problem with the tablet is the software that runs on a tablet does not have all of the features. It's a little bit crippled. It's not quite the same.
Okay. I do have a question from Brianna asking about how much does the trip cost and are there any age restrictions? So I'll let you guys talk about the age restrictions and then I can talk about some of the availability that we have and the cost for the trips.
You have to be under 102, right?
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, we've had pretty much any age. Teenagers, I think, what is it? Age 14 is our limit.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly that works if they are artistic and interested in the photography. It certainly doesn't work as well if they're younger than that and not interested in the photography as part of it.
We've had several times where we've had grandparents and grandkids, parents and kids who are all interested in photography together. And so those make for fun trips.
My experience has been with teenagers. I've had them as young as 15 or whatever. You put a teenager in a room full of adults and every time they will rise to the occasion. Put them in a room full of teenagers and then you got problems. But I've never had a problem with kids.
Yeah. With regards to the various trips, each one is priced differently, but for our Pat Creek Bear viewing, that is in May, end of May, that is the per person price is $9,800 per person. We do have 4 spots available for that. One cabin that's available as a queen cabin, and then we have a female shared cabin and then a male shared cabin. So we have 4 spaces available on that trip. On our Glacier Bay cruise, that's a little bit more because of the unique aspect of Glacier Bay and National Park and our concessionaires with that, but that's $10,000. $25 per person. And then for our San Juan Islands trips, which is the 5-day trip, that one is $4,975. And that price that I've quoted you is essentially double occupancy, but it does include everything once you're on the boat. There are no extra fees, instruction fees, things like that, park permits, all that. Going ashore, all that's included. And of course, all of Christine's wonderful food is included, as well as the experience of all of our crew and instructors. And let's see if there are any other questions here, just making sure have any other follow-up questions. And they're asking about scholarships. We don't offer scholarships, but we do, as times get closer to trips, we do offer discounts and pricing, that sort of thing. So it just depends. But of course, if you do want a particular trip, then you would want to sign up sooner than later. And for some of our trips, they do sell out a year in advance, more than a year in advance. So there's that.
But yeah, that is a way, if you're interested in trying to find a lower cost, is to wait around if you're flexible, because as we get closer to the trips, we do discount them to try to fill them up. So sometimes that works, but like Sarah said, that's that some of our trips are full more than a year in advance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say we do have a specials page on the website, so feel free to check back frequently on that. So, yeah. I think that's all that I had as far as questions. I'm not seeing any other questions. But of course, this is not your only chance to ask questions. As I like to say, you do have my email address up there at the top. So feel free to ask any follow-up questions, or if you're just too shy to ask in this format. But with that, I guess I'll just give everybody a chance for any last words before we close out the recording.
I'll offer a few last words. The experience, as I suggested earlier, of 8 days on the David B is an experience that you'll never forget. In terms of how it affects your photography, that cannot be overstated. But more importantly, the inspiring and soul nourishing nature of 8 days spent like this is something that will stay with you forever.
Thank you, John. Al, do you have anything more you want to add?
Join us. It'll be a lot of fun. Guaranteed. Bring stretch pants.
You'll eat a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Jeffrey and Christine.
Yeah.
Oh, I think, these are some of my favorite trips that we do. And I always look forward to them every year. The camaraderie that develops within the time frame that we're all together is great. John and Al, we like to call them the click and clack of the photography world. For those of you who liked listening to Car Talk, they'll get that reference. But they're a wonderful team, and we have really enjoyed the years that we've had them on board, and just watching people blossom throughout the trips is a lot of fun.
We've had so many people come back again and again. It's amazing. It's great. They've become lifelong friends.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank everyone who took the time out of their evening to join us. Just as a reminder, if you've signed up for this, we will send you the recording afterwards. We also, in 2 months, on February 4th, we do have a follow-up 21st season preview of the rest of our trips that are available. So if you'd like to join us for that as well, feel free to put that on your calendar. But with that, I'm going to end the recording and thank everyone again for joining us this evening.